It was a cold night. The wind was strong. The street was empty. A poor boy sat alone on a broken bench. His clothes were old. His feet had no shoes. His eyes were full of tears. He looked at the dark sky and whispered, "Mother, where are you?" His mother had died last year. She was sick, but they had no money for medicine. She died in his arms. That night, he cried so much that he could not sleep. But there was another pain in his heart. His little sister Asha was missing. She disappeared one night. Nobody knew where she went. Some people said she ran away. Some said someone took her. But he knew one thing: he had to find her. He touched the small locket around his neck. It was the only thing left of his mother. She gave it to him before she died and said, "Take care of your sister. Never leave her alone." He failed his mother. He lost Asha. That night, he made a promise. "I will find Asha, no matter what." The boy had no home. He had no money. But he had hope. He walked through the streets asking people, "Have you seen my sister?" He asked an old man. "No, boy." "Go home," the man said. He asked a shopkeeper, "Please, sir, have you seen a little girl?" The shopkeeper shook his head. "Go away. I have no time." Days passed. Nights passed. He was hungry. He was tired. But he did not stop. One night, he sat near a small tea shop. He heard two men talking. "I heard about a house," one man said. "Strange things happen there. Children disappear." The boy's heart jumped. Could Asha be there? He thought. He followed the men. They walked through a dark alley. The boy hid behind a wall and listened. "The old house near the forest. That place is cursed," the second man said. A chill ran through the boy's body. He had heard about that house before. People said ghosts lived there. People said children who went inside never came back. But he was not afraid. That night, he went to the house. It was big and broken. The windows were dark. The door was open, but there was no sound. He stepped inside. The wooden floor made a creaking sound. Creak. He stopped. His heart was beating fast. Drip. Drip. Water fell from the ceiling. A strange smell filled the air. It smelled like old clothes and dust. Suddenly, he heard a whisper, "Go away." The boy froze. His hands shook. But he closed his eyes and thought of Asha. "I cannot leave. I must find her." He walked deeper into the house. The walls had scratches. The air was cold. Then he heard something. A cry. It was soft. A child's cry. He ran towards the sound. It came from the basement. He saw a door. It was locked. "Asha, are you there?" he shouted. The crying stopped. Then a small voice said, "Brother?" Tears filled his eyes. It was Asha. He pushed the door. It did not open. He kicked it. It did not move. He looked around and found a heavy stick. With all his strength, he hit the lock. The lock broke. He pulled the door open. Inside, he saw Asha. Her face was pale. Her eyes were red from crying. "Brother!" She ran into his arms. He held her tight. "I found you. I promised I would." Suddenly they heard footsteps. Someone was coming. "Who's there?" a deep voice said. The boy grabbed Asha's hand. "Run," he whispered. They ran up the stairs. The footsteps followed them. They reached the door. But a shadow stood in front of them. It was a tall man. His face was covered. "Where do you think you're going?" the man growled. The boy's heart pounded. He had no strength to fight. Then Asha whispered, "Brother, the locket." He remembered their mother's locket. He held it tight and prayed. The wind inside the house became strong. The candles blew out. A loud sound filled the air. The man screamed, "No, go away!" The boy and Asha ran out. The house shook. The door slammed behind them. The boy held Asha's hand and ran. They did not stop until they reached the city. They were safe. The sun was rising. The sky was pink and orange. Asha looked at her brother. "You found me," she whispered. He smiled. "I promised." They had no home. They had no money. But they had each other. The boy looked at the sky and whispered, "Mother, I kept my promise." Asha held his hand. They walked forward, together. Family is not about where we live. It is about being together. As long as we have love, we are never truly poor.